Welcome to the Lure Lab. A part of the Serious Angler Network, and the Lure Lab is presented by Omnia Fishing. And if you head over there, everything is going to be linked down below in the description. You type in Serious 10 at checkout, and you're going to save yourself 10%. But as always, I'm your host, the Captain, Andrew Full, and man, I am fired up about this episode today. We have Matt Becker joining us, Bass Pro Tour Pro, reigning Angler of the Year. I think was it last year or 2 years ago he won Angler of the Year on the BPT. Time is flying over here. But we're talking core tackle, a jig head that he may not have designed entirely, but help bring to fruition and have a mass-produced product in the Scamper rig, which is going to be for rigging soft plastic jerkbait style baits and a bunch of other ones as well. So this is going to be a good one. Tons of knowledge, tons of juice, where to fish it, rod, reel, setup, etc., and the best soft plastics to rig on the Scamper rig. So without further ado, let's get Matt Becker on. All right. Well, we have Matt Becker joining us, a frequent flyer here on the Serious Angler Network, right, man? So what's going on? What's new over with you? How are things?
Pretty good. You know, we got a little different scenery. We're actually hanging out in the tackle shop here. We're hanging out in the garage right now. I was just doing some content of my own out here, and excited to get on and talk some specific baits with you. You know, I actually have the computer and camera set up right here on my little tinkering workbench. So this is like where I mess with a lot of different things and just try new things. And actually, it's pretty crazy. You know, some of the baits and stuff that I've come up with just playing right here in the garage. It's this is like where I come to find my peace right here.
Peace is good, my friend. Peace is good.
Yes,
right?
This is like where I come to escape. You know, I just come out here and just look at different baits and tackle and organize things, and just that's where I find my peace, is when everything's organized. Like you can see behind me, the boat all clean and organized, the whole tackle wall, and everything's nice and neat and clean. That's when I'm fishing my best, and that's when I feel my best too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it truly peaceful though? Like, because as soon as you think of something, right, and you start messing around, you're like, oh crap, here comes another rabbit hole. Then you're screwed for like 2 weeks until you perfectly dial it in to the way you want it to work.
Yeah, that's something for sure. Like you can get down some rabbit holes and waste a lot of time or money, or just buy baits for no reason. I mean, it happens for sure. But when it does all work out, it's worth it.
Yeah, I would say that was like the JDM craze before people knew like how to access JDM baits. It was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, when like if you knew where to get it, you had it. But if you didn't, people are like, where are you getting that? And it's like, then all of a sudden everyone found out. Now it's like a main staple in the US. You have all these JDM tackle shops popping up and opening that just do it specifically. So that's pretty crazy. But like, I remember
it's a lot more accessible now for sure.
Oh, you don't have to fly all the way to Japan to go get it.
I know. That's for sure.
So, but today, right, we're chatting about the Scamper rig, which basically came out with mass production by Core Tackle. But
correct.
People were making this hook basically in their garage, and they've basically perfected it. So for those who don't know, what is a Scamper rig?
Yeah, so let's kind of show you the progression of it. So basically, this right here was the original design that I had for a Scamper rig. That is basically just a straight shank drop shot hook, and I wrapped some lead wire around the shank of the hook. So this is actually the hook that I used to win on Lake Murray in 2021. So that's really like where my idea for the Scamper rig came up. Now, like you said, it's not a very unique idea. Guys have been adding weight to their hook for a long time. But what I kind of learned as I was adding the lead to this is when you add that lead, especially further back the shank of the hook here, kind of almost keel weight that fluke style bait, it creates a new action for that bait. It almost creates a vibration or a tail kick. So, last year I roomed with Matt Steffen on the Bass Pro Tour, and we're always just talking around, like what's the next cool bait idea or what's something, and he wanted to partner up with me and kind of work together to design a bait, and we came up with this guy right here, and we designed the scamper rig. So the weight has changed a little bit. The way the lead is, it's kind of hard to see on there, but the weight is actually. Hopefully you can see that.
It looks like it's more forward towards the hook tie, like the
Yeah, so the
eye.
weight's a little more forward, but this is the lighter size. When you get to the other size, it is more keeled back down the shank of the hook. But the way the lead is on the actual hook, the majority of the lead is on the bottom.
Hmm.
So the hook is not perfectly centered through that lead on the shank of the hook. It is the hook is much higher in the lead. So the bulk of the lead is on the bottom. So it helps that bait ride with the hook point up a little bit more because the bulk of that weight is on the belly. So basically the scamper rig is that same rig that I came up with for Lake Murray. It's just a little bit of weight rigged on a trocar finesse worm hook. So it's the TK 180 hook, and this is the 4/0 size, and there's also a 2/0 size. So basically it is a weighted soft plastic jerkbait hook, but that's not just all that it's for. You can really rig the scamper rig on so many different baits that we're finding that really creates a unique action. But that's kind of what started it all, and what the design process behind it was a weighted soft plastic jerkbait style hook. And honestly, it turned out better than I could ever imagined, and puts more of a unique action on those type of baits than I really thought was possible.
Yeah, I've seen, like, speaking of other baits, I've seen like floating worms, like straight-tailed worms, like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
The
that's
options are endless. The
what's the
options are endless.
craziest bait you've put it in?
Man, I've tried it on everything. To be honest, like I've put it in like swim baits to see what it would do on small little swim baits like a Kitech or a shed shaped swimmer, things like that. Even just a Cinco. Like you would be surprised if you just thread this into a Cinco and watch what it does to a Cinco. It is unbelievable the action that you could put into literally the most do nothing bait you could make vibrate and have a crazy unique action just from this weighted hook, the scamper rig. So it's really cool to see how it's the weight distribution versus the line tie that allows that action. But like I said, the options are endless. Like I've got some stuff laying around here. I've put it in, like that's a minnow style bait, a scope shad, and you can put it in there and use it just like you would a jig head minnow. Granted, it's going to fall a lot slower, but when those fish see it and you start pulling away from them and it gets that little tail kick going, it really catches them when those fish are pretty close to the surface. So, like I said, the options are endless, and I don't even think we've scratched the surface on the scamper rig just yet.
Yeah, like I'm thinking about like 7, 8 inch like soft plastics, because that's like the new thing with like the big
Mm-hmm.
flukes, right? So it's like, ooh, I wonder how that would look if you put it on like a 5/0 or a 6/0 hook and put it in there and maybe went to what, a 3/16 weight
Yep.
instead of
So
32nd or
that will be the next uh, thing that
progression.
you
Yeah.
see. Yeah, the progression in the scamper rig is we're already working on a bigger size hook that we're in the talks of that to get the right hook for that, and potentially could see that here real soon where you have a bigger hook and maybe some bigger weights for those really big style soft plastic jerk baits that are so popular right now.
No, that's awesome. So, like, if you had to pick one or two soft plastics to pair with it, what would be your top two to put on there?
So really, I mean, it all started with a soft plastic jerk bait. Whether you're throwing a fluke or I mean, this is an old fluke. It was a pearl, but he rubbed up against the June bug bait, so he's got a purple tail.
That
But
thing probably gets chewed at this point because it's so
yeah, it would
different.
probably work good with that. So basically, this is a Yamamoto D shad. It's a little bit heavier and it has a little bit different tail design than a fluke. So he kind of swims a little different, but really it puts the same sort of action in any of your soft plastic jerk baits. I mean, you name it, you can rig it up on the Scamper rig. So really that's what this bait is designed for. So that's obviously number one is a Yamamoto D shad. That's going to be number one for the Scamper rig. Number two, man, I think you kind of touched on it with the floating worm. So I know that's not a super popular technique right now, but early in that pre-spawn when the fish are sliding up, throwing like a bright colored floating worm, a methiolate or a yellow, a bright orange, something like that, a bubble gum, those floating worms, rigging him up on a Scamper rig really creates a unique action on those floating worms. And I caught a few fish on it here in March down on Chickamauga. But that'd probably be number two. And then any minnow style bait you can rig up on the Scamper rig and catch some fish if they're fairly close to the surface for sure.
Yeah, I feel like this would work great for those fish that are like sunning and floating, that sometimes you throw a wacky rig at them and they get spooked because of the high salt content of those baits, right? But you slide it past and kind of slather it up there right next to them, they probably get a little reactive.
No doubt. They'll slide up there and check it out. And I mean, it just creates such a unique action. That's the cool thing about the Scamper rig is it takes a bait that typically, would have more of a darting action or, kind of an erratic side to side action, and it adds a vibration to it. So literally if you rig this Scamper rig up on a D shad and you cast him in the water and you pull, you make a pull with your rod tip, you'll feel it vibrating almost like a chatterbait or something. Like you will see your rod tip vibrating, you'll feel the vibration, and it's really just that whole body kicking just like that. As the head pulls along, that whole tail kicks and adds a vibration, and it just creates a different vibration, a different frequency that the fish haven't seen, because it's literally just plastic that's vibrating, not a blade or spinnerbait blades or chatterbait blades or anything. It's just plastic swimming back and forth, creating that vibration. So it's creating something the fish have never really seen before, because I don't think there's a whole lot of other plastic baits out there that can put a vibration in the water like that. You think of maybe like a scrounger type thing, but other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot that can do that without adding some sort of blade or something to the bait.
It's interesting. So I know there's two different weight sizes, right? There's the 1/16th and the 1/32nd, and they come with a couple different hook options as well. But when do you choose each size to fish? And like if you're to fish around the Scamper rig, like what does your typical retrieve look like?
Yeah, so like you said, there's two weight sizes and two hook sizes. So the hook sizes, there's a 2/0 and a 4/0. Basically, between those, I picked the 2/0 for my smaller baits. Say your 3 to 4 inch baits. If you get up to a 5 inch, a standard fluke style bait, I go with the 4/0. Your floating worms, I go with the 4/0. So basically, your smaller 2 to 4 inch minnows, I'm going to go with the 2/0. Then your bigger minnows and your worms, I'm going with the 4/0 size hook. And then there's two weight options in both of those hook sizes. So there, like you said, there's a 1/32nd and a 1/16th. So for me, to be honest, I find myself using the 1/32nd more often than the 1/16th. Just because typically when I'm throwing the Scamper rig on a soft plastic jerkbait, I want it to be pretty close to the surface. The situations that I use the 1/16th is for more of, we kind of touched on this guy right here, like the scope shad type bait, your minnow style baits, when you're actually, instead of throwing a jig head minnow, I'm throwing the Scamper rig at fish that are floating very close to the surface. Within the first 5 feet of the water column from the surface, I'm throwing the 1/16 ounce scamper rig at them and letting him just kind of slowly fall to them. But once that fish engages with the bait, I can pull it away from him, and that tail kicks, it vibrates, and you will actually have those fish chase it to the surface and sometimes even blow up on it on the surface. So that was something that I really played with last fall and really had a lot of fun with. And it really worked extremely well when you go to high pressured fisheries that have seen a bunch of jighead minnows. I was able to pick up that 1/16 scamper rig on a minnow style bait and catch those fish that were high up in the water column, smallmouth and largemouth. It didn't really seem to matter. But other than that, your retrieve with the soft plastic jerkbait, it's typically not going to be your typical soft plastic jerkbait where you're kind of twitching it and letting it dance and dart. You can still fish it that way. It will work perfectly. But with this, you're going for more of a pull type retrieve. So you're kind of sweeping your rod, 3 or 4 feet per sweep, and it's just allowing that bait to swim and then kind of pause, swim, and then pause. And you're basically trying to imitate a bait that is swimming by real fast and then kind of pausing. And a lot of those bites, most of those bites are going to come when you pause it and go to pull that bait again. He's going to have ate it.
Oh man, how many times have you gone to pull it, right? And all of a sudden it's like there, but you're like mid sweep and it pulls out and you pause again, and they smoke it.
Yeah, and about rip the rod out of your hand when you go to that's a lot of fun. And then the kind of what started it all at Lake Murray is what I was doing right here, was adding a little treble hook stinger to the back for when you're fishing it extremely fast around those herring fisheries. You can add that treble hook on the back. So when you're really trying to rip this bait, and if they just come up and nip at it, there's that treble hook stinger on the back to hook those fish and maybe just get those ones that aren't quite committing fully. You can get them with that treble hook. So that's just a little option that you can add on the back for just a little extra stinger hook.
Oh man, I was going to ask you because at the end we always do an Omnia Juice of the Week, and I was going to ask you if there's any modifications, and that's normally a question that I save. But
oh well, I answered it already.
Yeah, I'm going to tab that as the Omnia Juice of the Week because that's.
Well, I got something else. I got something else we could talk about too.
Okay, well, we'll side note it and add it in here at the end.
Yeah. We'll give up another little piece of juice. I can't take credit for this one. This is Matt Steffen told me about this with him playing with it, but I'll walk you through all that when we're ready for that.
All right, perfect. Yeah. So just a couple more questions for you then before we get to the juice of the show. But where do you look to fish the scamper rig? Like, what is your ideal situation?
Man, it's very versatile. So I don't think there's really one set situation that I'm looking to throw the scamper rig. Obviously, all of your herring type fisheries, when there's a herring spawn, a fluke style bait destroys those fish. So anytime you're in that situation, you can guarantee I'm going to have a scamper rig on. But other than that, really, like I said, I've really been playing with the scamper rig almost as a replacement for the jighead minnow in that shallower water or when those fish are close to the surface and you don't need your bait to sink down really far. So that's something that kind of sneaky that I've been playing with here for the last 6 to 8 months, last fall into this spring, and really, really excels in that situation. So that's just something that, you're not typically thinking of throwing a bait like this, but it really, really plays.
I have a couple ideas of areas that I want to throw it for smallies.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Added another tool to the box that now I have to get. Dang it.
I can only imagine, I haven't had the chance to take this up for, say, like spawning smallmouth. If there's a big shallow flat where they're spawning and you rip a big chartreuse fluke over their head or something bright and ugly, bubblegum fluke, something that just really piss them off, I bet you could catch a few on it.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm gonna go put them in my cart, as I think they're on Omnia, so I'm gonna go have to add those to my cart and get some.
They should be. So we sold them out pretty quick. So there may be a few left on a few few tackle shops like Omnia. I think Fish USA is sold out, but I know there's more coming here real soon. We should have sometime in the month of June, and
Awesome.
pick up what's left, what's available now, and get out there.
Yeah, for sure. And that goes to everyone listening as well. If you can find them, make sure you pick them up. So, what is your overall setup that you're throwing in this on? Is it casting gear, spinning gear? Then walk us through your rod, reel, and your line setup.
So I'm varying that based on the bait that I'm rigging on the scamper rig. So if we're talking general terms, if I'm using that 2/0 hook, I'm probably throwing him on a spinning rod because I'm throwing it on a smaller bait. So I'm throwing him on like a 7'3" kind of medium, more of a moderate action spinning rod, something that I can get pretty long casts with because it's going to be a fairly light bait. You know, the heaviest option is a 1/16 of an ounce, and you're adding a small little minnow style bait. So it's going to be a small little light profile that you're probably going to need to throw on a spinning rod. So that's why I lean towards that on a spinning rod. If I'm throwing, the 5-inch fluke style bait on the 4/0 hook, the bigger hook, the heavier, I'm throwing him on a bait caster. I typically like a 7.4, 7.5 range casting rod, 15-pound fluorocarbon. I run 15-pound Seagar and Vizex, and I like this is a fairly fast retrieve bait, so I'm going with more of a faster gear ratio. I throw the Shimano Bantam in kind of the 7.3 to 1 is what I'm throwing with this style bait. As far as spinning rod, I'm throwing him on braid to a fluorocarbon leader, so I'm really big on the Seagar PEX8 braided line. And then basically varying my leader based on the water clarity and the current conditions. But I would say anywhere from 8-pound to 12-pound leader on that for the smaller scamper rig. But really the main deal with that is the 2/0 hook is a lot thinner than the 4/0 hook as far as diameter of hook. So you want to make sure you don't use too heavy of a rod or line and worry about straightening that hook out, bending him out. So the 2/0, that's a spinning rod bait for me, and the 4/0, I'm throwing him on a bait caster.
Awesome. Yeah, man, my head's turning. I don't appreciate it. Like,
yeah, you're gonna catch them on it for sure.
yeah, and I'm like, oh, I wonder how they would eat it. Like, I wish I had it like 3 weeks ago when there was shad all over the place. Well, emerald shiners, because I'm sure
Oh
that
yeah.
would have been really good. But before I cut you loose, I mean, you spoiled my first Omnia Juice of the Week question. So, what's the second one you got for us here?
Okay, so this is gonna be a little rigging tip on your soft plastic jerk baits, your fluke style baits. So this is something, like I said, I can't take full credit for this because Matt Steffen told me about this, told me to try it, and he's been crushing them on it, and it really actually enhances the action of the scamper rig. So typically, if you're rigging a fluke, you would want your hook point to be on the back, the flat spot. But he says to rig it backwards. So basically, you're going to thread this straight down here, and the hook is going to come out the belly. So your hook point's going to be coming out the side with the flaps, the hook. So you're going to slide that weight up over there, just like that. Okay, so now your scamper rig's rigged up. But what that does is it adds all of that room for that bait to kick. It adds a whole bunch more action to the scamper rig when you rig it upside down as you typically would. So that just little rigging hack. And the other thing that this does is it allows you to rig it perfectly 99% of the time. So if there's one downfall to the scamper rig is it's fairly high level to get it rigged perfectly straight. Like you have to make sure that you rig your fluke perfectly straight when you're coming through the back. If it's a little bit crooked, it won't want to work just the way that you want it to. So you have to make sure that you rig that bait perfectly straight. But when you come through the belly, it gives you a little more freedom on the rigging just because, it's a little bit easier to get it straight because you're really only going through that much plastic there. You're not going through all the way through the back. So it's a little easier to get it rigged straight, and it really allows that whole bait to move because of that freedom right there. So That right there is a little tip that will add a whole bunch more action, and it will definitely allow you to get the most out of your scamper rigs when you rig it upside down.
I hope you rigged that fluke tomorrow up and you catch one on it, because that might be the craziest fluke combo. White and June bug.
Yeah, the purple tail. It was laying here on my little bench next to a June bug one. So this was the one that was laying next to it. Was one of the originals that I was prototyping when we were going through different designs, and it was just laying next to it and blended the tail. So I got a pearl fluke with a purple tail now.
Oh, that's probably money, especially if you
Yeah.
dye the tail chartreuse. It'd probably
Oh yeah,
crush.
put a little chartreuse on there, make it even better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, Matt, I want to say thank you again for coming on. I think this is the second time we've had you on the Lure Lab now, correct?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
awesome.
so.
And
I'm
I
not
know
sure.
we
We've been on a bunch on all serious angler stuff, so I appreciate you guys always having me on and
oh
talking
yeah.
fishing. I'm
We,
always game.
we appreciate you being willing to come on, man, and I hope you have a good rest of the season, and I'm sure we'll see you somewhere soon. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
all right, buddy. We'll chat soon.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode here on the Lure Lab presented by Omnia. And there was a ton of juice and some cool rigging hacks as well. So, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you made it this far and you're listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. And let us know down below if you have fished the Scamper rig or you plan to do so after listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate everyone who tunes in. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please leave a review here on the Lure Lab. It allows the Lure Lab to be seen by more people who are interested in bass fishing, want to learn more about all the techniques and ways to present baits, and just overall learn to catch more bass, or even help fine tune that craft to catch more bass, right? And catch bigger bass. So this is the place for you. We greatly appreciate everyone who tunes in on a weekly basis, and we'll see everyone next week.